It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, and it's time again for the SMC Journal podcast, the show that's all about software engineering in today's modern IT. And we cover all kinds of stuff like testing, tuning, observability, security, AI ops, and just a bunch of stuff, man. If it's hot in IT, we're talking about it on this show. And today's topic, we are actually going to talk about JMeter. Hold it. What did I say? JMeter. I can't believe those words came out of my mouth. Was that actually me saying it? I'm Scott Moore, your host, by the way, and thank you for being with me. But yes, JMeter is actually the topic of today's show. We're actually going to talk to somebody who actually not only uses JMeter, but contributes to JMeter and is a model citizen for the JMeter community. And I'll bet you never thought you would see that on this show. Yes, for those who are the uninitiated, I spend half of my career on LinkedIn making fun of JMeter for no apparent reason. There's nothing wrong with JMeter. It's just, why not, right? But before we get into this conversation about JMeter, let's talk about the sponsor that made this episode possible. This episode is sponsored by OpenText, the information company. We power and protect information. Our purpose is to elevate every person and every organization to gain the information advantage. OpenText works to power the ubiquitous information around us to elevate everyone. We strive to help customers simplify their systems with frictionless automation and equip them to thrive and grow in a digital world. The LoadRunner family is one of many solutions where OpenText can help. Did you know that LoadRunner has the largest community of load testing professionals in the world? Check out the QR code or go to their website at opentext.com to find out more about the LoadRunner family. So I know there are a lot of people who use JMeter out there, and sometimes you prefer an open source product. Not just because it's free. You would never just download something just because it's free and just use it as is. No, you would actually want to take that product and make it do what it needs to do. Make it jump up and down. Make it speak and say something because you are a contributor to the project. No? Oh, well then you're no different than 98% of the people who use JMeter. But that's okay because there's always those people who actually want to do the right thing and make JMeter better. Such is the case with my guest today. I'm going to bring on Jakub Daring, and he is an experienced performance engineer who's actually contributed a plugin to JMeter, and we're going to highlight that today. So let's bring Jakub on. Hey, Jakub, welcome to the SMC Journal podcast. I am so glad to finally have you on my show.
Hi, Scott. Thank you for inviting me.
Jakub has been a longtime fan of the stuff that I do. I don't know why, but he's one of the few people who really watch the shows and like them for some reason. And he has supported us financially. That's not the reason why he's on the show. The reason why he's on the show is because he's an awesome performance engineer, and he is doing some of the toughest performance engineering you can possibly do working with JMeter. Did I just say JMeter? Yes, I did. Jakub, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience and talk about your past and how you became a performance engineer?
Yes. Hey. So I'm Jakub. The common name in Poland is Kuba, so you may know me also as Kuba. I've been a performance engineer for last 7 years, I guess. Everything started when a colleague of mine needed needed someone to help them with some basic performance tests. So I was doing back in the day some data analysis. I was doing some scripting, some coding for the back in the day it was Thomson Reuters company. They found out and they shortly interviewed me for a junior performance tester role. And that's how it started. I never knew how hard it would be and what the journey it would be to actually learn the stuff. We started with a small web service with just 2 servers. And my first task, my first assignment was actually to migrate some of the old LoadRunner tests to JMeter for various reasons.
Wow, and that's very interesting. In fact, it's more interesting because LoadRunner supports JMeter. You can run JMeter tests in LoadRunner. Maybe that was before that time, was it?
Yes, that was a long time before.
Yeah, so you go way back. That's great. I remember my first experience with that when I got designated as you're going to learn this load testing tool and you're going to be the performance expert. I really didn't know. I had an IT background, but I didn't know they were going to send me to training, but I wasn't in training yet. And they were just like, you see that box over there? You're going to figure out how to use it. And I was like, so that sometimes that's where it starts, The interesting thing about you, you not only do you use JMeter in the enterprise level, you've had to navigate through a lot of challenges to make it work for you. But you are also a contributor to JMeter. In other words, you have actually added your own plugin and you've contributed to the source code of JMeter, and not just with one time. Can you talk a little bit about your experience being part of the JMeter community and adding code to it, what that process is like?
Mhm. Yes, actually, so the like plugin that I've updated was not mine in the first place. So it was there. It was the core of the of this functionality has been there already. What was missing was to make it work for an enterprise level. So we're talking when we have dozens or tens of services you want to hit. This stuff was missing there. So like talking about the throughput shaping timer. So the updates are to those libraries are very simple. Uh, I couldn't find any guidelines on the contribution, but it's just like an IT project. So you can just fork this code on for your own. You can modify it, and then if you're happy with it, and if I think that everyone else would be happy with it, you just push it. It goes for a acceptance of the repository owner.
And I know everybody knows, especially Stephen Townshend, who's probably watching this show just out of curiosity. I go and talk really bad about JMeter, and it's all in jest. It's all in fun, because I do think JMeter serves a great purpose, especially in shifting left for developers and things. But this is a big community, right? I mean, there are a lot of JMeter users, and there are people that are contributing code and stuff to it. Can you talk a little bit about that, about how involved and how big this community for JMeter actually is that is actually working on this project?
I've seen, I think I recall around 600 contributors for the plugins itself. As per the JMeter core, I haven't checked the numbers there, but it's big. Like it's not like everyone's contributing every day on something. But if there's some major updates, for example, when we needed to update the infamous log4j libraries, the fix for that went on the next day, right? Once it was cut. So I think the community is still active, even though the JMeter itself may appear as obsolete. There are also some companies who have successfully embedded the JMeter in their own as their own engine. So I think it proves how reliable this and versatile this tool can be.
To me, really, this is the strength of open source, is that if you choose to go that route and you're committed to doing it, you have to be committed to making it do what it doesn't do today that you need. If it doesn't do or have a feature, you have the ability to create that feature. Of course, we know most people just say, well, it's just a free tool that I can use. I'll use it as I can. If it doesn't do that, I'll ask somebody else to help me with it, but they're not actually actively contributing to it. But the beauty of open source is that you can do that. You got to have the skill set to do it, and not everybody does. So it's not for everybody. That's also the curse of it, is that when you don't know how to make it do what you want it to do, and you have to rely on somebody else, or you have to try to search the web and find it, or try to get support for it because you don't have the answer, that can be a little bit of a problem. That can hold up projects. You can have defects that will go unfixed for a while until you find somebody who can do it. But I mean, there's good and there's bad, right? But you are actually what I would call like the model citizen for making something like JMeter work. So I want to talk a little bit about your plugin here, and I'm going to bring up this page on the JMeter plugins page. This is called the Throughput Shaping Timer. You released this maybe a couple of months ago, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, and so talk a little bit about this plugin and what it does and why you created it.
Okay, so the target, say, audience for this specific timer is not actually a user-facing application. It's a simulation of the request per second when one application is hitting the other, right? So this is like for the service, which is like most likely doesn't have any context of a session, and each request would be unique, right? So this is where it's like where it's shining the most, and this is actually one of the applications I thought of when implementing those fixes. and for me actually to use on a daily basis. So what it does is it's adjusting the number of threads you have in the JMeter to match your load requirement, right? So this dependency of how many threads you're going to have, and the response times of your application, right? So typically when you have a increasing response times because of saturation, your throughput is going to be slightly lower. But in reality, if an application is going to hit you, it's not going to actually decrease of its workload. It's going to try to compensate that with adding more threads, right? So, and this is exactly what this timer is simulating, in connection with concurrency thread group plugin. So when they're used together, they have the full power of simulating the application. When there are some external users hitting this other application, they hit it at a stable throughput. So then if the other application is saying, hey, this other app or service is slacking, I need to create more concurrency. I need to push more threads to the service to meet those requirements.
Awesome. So I understand that you've actually got a demo that you can actually show us how this plugin is actually working. Is that right? You brought one with you?
Yes, I have.
Awesome. All right. So we're going to go to that video right now.
Throughput Shaping Timer. What is it for? So let's say you want to achieve a 50 TPS stable workload against your service. You start with simple baselining. You start with a single thread. Find out what is the average response times, put this into your Excel sheet, get some numbers out of it, get some required threads, enter that into your JMeter test. But you can find out that if as soon as the application is not responding within your time frames, your throughput is also going to be lower or higher, depends on the application behavior. So you take another approach and you try out the constant throughput timer, which is also constrained to the number of threads you supply to your JMeter tests. And you also face the same problem. So as soon as the application is responding above some certain threshold, you'll find out that your hits per second or requests per second is going to decrease, and your test results would look like you cannot achieve both the hits per second and the response times. So you can use the Throughput Shaping Timer to solve this problem and to run your tests only once. So you start with a concurrency thread group. You enter the target concurrency as a TST feedback function with the name of your timer. You specify the duration and the time of your test. And you also need to create a throughput shaping timer with your desired request per second values. So you see it on the graph here. And throughput shaping timer is going to supply the threads in response to the application response times. So if the application is going to perform well, you're going to need less threads to achieve those throughputs. And if it's going to time out or throw errors from the application side, the throughput shaping timer is also going to adjust the number of threads for you to achieve the specific workload. But this has been there for a while. So what is new? So I've added the new load profile properties, which are named, and you can use them based on the name of your throughput shaping timer instance. So right now you can specify for every occurrence in every instance of this timer, you can specify the workload for each of them using the functions like line, constant, and step. And you can see it's also in your GUI when you supply those properties directly when launching JMeter.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for providing that demo. I'm sure there's a lot of JMeter users who are now going to go to that page and download that and actually start using it. Were there any other things that you know of that you've contributed to JMeter other than this?
Yes, my previous contribution was an performance improvement in one of the plugins for a Redis dataset. Yes, so if you use a Redis as your data storage database, you can just pull the data from the cache. So we found out that there was actually some small bottleneck there, and the performance could be improved. So following the standard performance engineer process, try to fix the performance testing tool was actually a nice experience.
That's kind of like Inception, isn't it? Where you're performance testing the performance testing tool. But that's great. That means that we are drinking the water that we swim in. We practice what we preach, and I love that. That's the way you're supposed to do. So I'm just calling out every other JMeter user. Like this, you are the prime a person that I would like to see using JMeter. Somebody who is always looking to improve, self-improve, contribute, be part of it, make it better. I'm calling everybody else out. You need to be like Jakub. You need to be like Jakub if you're going to use JMeter. And then I wouldn't complain so much. Not only are you an active contributor, though, you also speak out there, and you're always sharing your knowledge, which I think is important to mention as well. And I understand that you're going to be speaking this November at AutomationSTAR in Berlin in November. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
So I've got the page up for this so that I can let everybody know about this talk. I think people need to attend this. So why don't you talk about what people can expect if they come to your session there?
Mhm. So at my job, some of at least part of it is a experimental or experimenting of various tooling, various approaches. And since this conference is all about automation, I will be covering topics like automation of performance tests, but also a synergy between the test automation and performance tests and how you can leverage it. Spoiler alert, it's going to be with JMeter, but yeah, because everyone can use that.
I can't believe it. I can't believe you're going to use JMeter. Now, you don't just use JMeter. You use other products when needed. You use whatever the client wants. So just not standing on JMeter, but you just have a lot of experience in that using it. I think that's great. Thing about this that triggers an idea that I always hear from my good friend James Pulley. He's always saying, and I'm repeating and regurgitating, if it doesn't work for one, if it doesn't scale for one, it's not going to scale for many. If your timings, performance timings aren't doing well for a single virtual user, how can they be better when you add more to it? So having functional testers add performance information to their test, even when they're doing single iterations, is so important. And that's like the ultimate shifting left, like, because they're the first ones to go in and check it. So if you can get that information, that is a definition of shifting left, getting the feedback as early as possible about your performance or degradation thereof, so you can do something about it. Why do you need to run a load test if you're already failing on that first functional test run, right? So I think this is wonderful. Is there anything else that you've got going on even later this year that you might want to highlight or talk about?
Yeah, I'm planning a long paternity leave, so it's going to be very close. So I don't think I will be contributing much in that time.
That's
But
right. Your wife is expecting. Congratulations. So any day, right?
yes, any
So
hour again.
it's possible that by the time that this actually airs and is released, you might have another child.
That's true.
So
Yes.
everybody who watches this show, make sure you comment and give congratulations to Jakub for his new member of his family. That's wonderful. So thank you so much for being on the show today. You're always welcome back anytime. If you ever do more contributions to JMeter, let me know of anything that you're doing. We'll make sure that we highlight it and let people know. And I highly encourage you to follow what Jakub's doing on LinkedIn and any of his projects, because he's definitely providing value out there as a performance engineer. He's sharing his knowledge, and that's what it's all about. So you are a rock star, my friend.
And so are you. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you. So there you have it, a conversation about JMeter on the SMC Journal podcast. So please go play the lotto today, because it could be your lucky day. What did you think about our conversation, and what do you think about Jakub's plugin? I thought it was very cool. You may have a different perspective. If you do, contact me. I'm very easy to find on most social media platforms. You can scan that QR code and find me in multiple different ways. You can also just blast an email out at me at heyscott@smcjournal.com. Would love to hear your feedback. And if you want to see more shows like this, then you need to let me know that. And maybe you subscribe to the YouTube channel and say, hey, I'm a subscriber. I'm watching what you do, and I kind of like it. That would be very, very cool. So until next time, who knows what we'll be talking about. This is Scott Moore for the SMC Journal saying thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.